She was not just a queen, she was a weapon, beautiful, calculated, and completely fearless. She did not walk into Israel looking to fit in. She walked in looking to take over. She brought her gods, her priests, and her agenda. And the king beside her did absolutely nothing to stop her. This is Jezebel. To understand Jezebel, you need to know where she came from. She was the daughter of the king of Phoenicia, a powerful nation on the coast known for wealth, trade, and idol worship. She grew up surrounded by the worship of Baal and Asherah. This was all she had ever known. It shaped everything about her. Phoenicia was nothing like Israel. There was no covenant with God, no law, no prophets. Their temples were filled with idol worship and rituals offered to Baal, the god they believed controlled rain and harvest. Jezebel did not just believe in Baal casually, she was devoted to him completely. He was her identity, her mission, her everything. Before we go further, if this story is already getting under your skin, hit that like button right now. Share this with someone who loves Bible stories. Subscribe so you never miss what we put out next. Drop in the comments. Type, "I stayed till the end. I read every single one." Okay, let us get back to it. When Ahab, king of Israel, married Jezebel, it was a political decision. Two powerful nations forming an alliance through marriage. On paper, it made sense. But the Bible does not see it that way. It says Ahab did more to make God angry than every king of Israel before him, and Jezebel was the reason why. Ahab was not a strong man. He wanted comfort more than he wanted to do what was right. He wanted peace more than he wanted truth. So when Jezebel arrived in Israel with her idols and her priests and her plans, Ahab just watched. He did not push back. He did not say no. He let her in. The moment Jezebel settled into Israel, she got to work. She did not come to blend in. She came to replace. She immediately started bringing in 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah. She housed them all at the royal table. She had built a spiritual army inside God's own land, but bringing in her own prophets was not enough for Jezebel. She started hunting down and killing the prophets of God, not debating them, not sending them away, killing them. She turned the whole nation into a place where speaking in the name of God could get you killed. She wanted his voice removed from Israel completely. One man did something brave during this time. A royal official named Obadiah secretly feared God. While Jezebel's soldiers were searching everywhere, Obadiah hid 100 of God's prophets in caves and fed them bread and water to keep them alive. Israel had become a place where following God was an act of survival. Jezebel had done that. Then God sent a man to stand against her. His name was Elijah. He walked straight up to King Ahab and delivered one of the most bold statements in the entire Bible. He said there would be no rain and no dew in Israel until he gave the word. Not a request, not a warning, a declaration, just like that. The drought hit hard, crops failed, rivers dried up, famine spread across the land. And here is what made it so powerful. Baal was supposed to be the god of rain and storms, but the sky stayed sealed. Every dry day was a public embarrassment for everything Jezebel had brought into Israel. But she did not back down. She hunted Elijah harder. After 3.5 years of drought, God told Elijah it was time to come out of hiding. Elijah went to Ahab and issued a challenge: bring all of Israel and all of Jezebel's prophets of Baal to a mountain called Carmel, one altar, one fire, one God. Whoever answers from heaven is the real God. Ahab agreed. What happened on Mount Carmel is one of the most dramatic moments in the entire Bible. The prophets of Baal built their altar, placed their offering on it, and started calling on Baal from morning until noon. Nothing happened. They shouted louder. They danced around the altar. They cut themselves until blood was running down their bodies. Still nothing. Total silence. Elijah watched all of this, and then he did something unexpected. He started mocking them. He said, "Shout louder. Maybe your God is busy thinking. Or maybe he is traveling. Or maybe he fell asleep and someone needs to wake him up." The prophet screamed even louder. Baal still did not answer. By the afternoon, the altar was soaked in blood. Nothing. Then Elijah rebuilt the altar of God. He dug a trench around it and poured 12 large jars of water over the wood and the offering. Everything was completely soaked. Then he prayed one short, quiet prayer, and fire came down from heaven. It burned up the offering, the wood, the stones, the water, everything, gone in an instant. The people watching fell to the ground and cried out, "The Lord, He is God," over and over again. All 450 prophets of Baal were seized and executed that day. Then the rain came back. After 3.5 years, the sky opened. Everything Jezebel had built her identity on had just been publicly destroyed on a mountain. When Ahab told Jezebel what had happened, that Elijah had killed all her prophets, her response was not grief or fear or doubt. It was pure rage. She sent a direct message to Elijah. She said that by this time tomorrow she would make his life exactly like the lives of the prophets he had just killed. A death threat, no hesitation. And here is the part that surprises most people. Elijah ran. The same man who just called fire down from heaven was now running into the wilderness in terror. He sat down under a tree and asked God to let him die. He said he had had enough. Even the strongest people carry very human hearts inside them. Elijah was completely broken. God did not shout at Elijah for being afraid. He did not lecture him. Instead, an angel came and touched him and gave him fresh bread and water, twice. The angel said the journey ahead was too much and he needed strength. God's response to his prophet falling apart was not a rebuke. It was a meal, and rest, and a quiet voice. While Elijah was recovering in the wilderness, Jezebel was still in the palace, still in control, still dangerous. Her prophets were gone, but her grip on the kingdom had not loosened. Ahab was still beside her. The prophet had fled, and she simply moved on to her next target. And this next chapter would show exactly who she really was at her core. Next to the royal palace in Jezreel was a vineyard owned by a man named Naboth. Ahab wanted it for a vegetable garden because of where it sat. He went to Naboth and offered him a fair deal, either a better vineyard or silver in exchange. It seemed reasonable, but Naboth said no. The vineyard was his family inheritance. The law of God said he could not sell it. Ahab went home, got into his bed, turned his face to the wall, and refused to eat. The king of Israel was sulking because a man legally said no to selling him his land. When Jezebel found him like this, she was not sympathetic. She was dismissive. She said, "Is this how a king of Israel behaves? Get up. I will get you that vineyard." Jezebel wrote letters using Ahab's name and sealed them with his royal seal. She sent them to the leaders of Naboth's city. The letters told them to call a public gathering, seat Naboth at the front, and then have 2 men stand up and falsely accuse him of cursing God and the king. Both charges carried the death penalty. She had it all planned out already. The leaders did exactly what the letters said. 2 false witnesses accused Naboth in front of everyone. The crowd took him outside the city and stoned him to death. An innocent man, a man who had done nothing wrong, a man whose only crime was obeying God's law about his family land, killed by the justice system of his own nation because Jezebel wanted a garden. When Jezebel heard that Naboth was dead, she walked straight to Ahab and told him to go take the vineyard because the owner was no longer alive. No emotion, no guilt, just a transaction completed. She had removed the obstacle and she expected Ahab to go collect his prize, and he did. He got up and went to take possession of Naboth's vineyard, but God had seen everything. He sent Elijah directly to Ahab in Naboth's vineyard. When Ahab saw Elijah coming, his first words were, "Have you found me, my enemy?" And Elijah answered without blinking. He said, "Yes, because you have sold yourself to do evil in the sight of God." Then he delivered the sentence on Ahab, on Jezebel, on their entire family line. The word against Jezebel was specific. Elijah said that dogs would eat Jezebel's body by the wall of Jezreel, not a quiet death in a palace, not a royal burial. Dogs in the street. The woman who had silenced God's prophets, murdered an innocent man, and spent her life replacing God with Baal was going to die in the most undignified way possible. Ahab heard the verdict and actually humbled himself before God. He fasted and mourned, and God acknowledged it. saying that because Ahab had humbled himself, the full disaster would not come in his lifetime but in his son's. Then Ahab went back to being Ahab. He died in battle, struck by a random arrow between the joints of his armor, exactly as God had said. Jezebel outlived Ahab by years. She stayed in the palace through the reign of her sons. She was still powerful, still influencing the direction of the nation, still dangerous. The judgment that had been spoken over her had not yet arrived, but it was coming. God's word does not expire. It does not get forgotten. It was still moving toward her. Slowly, certainly, on schedule. Then God anointed a military commander named Jehu as the new king of Israel. His specific assignment was to bring judgment on the house of Ahab and on Jezebel. Jehu moved fast. He drove his chariot toward Jezreel at full speed. A watchman on the tower spotted him from a distance and reported back. The driving looks like Jehu. He drives like a madman. Jezebel heard that Jehu was coming. She heard that her son the king was already dead, and what she did next tells you everything about who she was. She painted her eyes, she fixed her hair. She went to the upper window and looked out. This was not vanity. This was Jezebel's final statement. She would face death the exact same way she had faced everything, defiant. She looked down at Jehu and called out to him. She compared him to a king who had assassinated his master years before. She was insulting him even now, even at the end. Jehu looked up at the window and asked who was on his side. 2 or 3 of her own servants looked down at him. He said one word, "Throw her down." And they threw her down. She fell from the upper window. Her blood hit the wall and the horses. Jehu drove his chariot straight over her and went inside to eat his meal. After eating, he told his men to go and bury her because she had been a king's daughter. But when they went out, the dogs had already been there. Almost nothing was left. Only her skull, her feet, and the palms of her hands remained. The soldiers went back and told Jehu what they had found. He simply said, "This is the word of the Lord that he spoke through Elijah." No surprise, no horror, just recognition. What God had said years earlier had happened exactly as he said, in exactly the place he said, word for word. Jezebel's story leaves us with one truth that is impossible to ignore. God is patient, but he is not silent, and he is not slow. He simply waits until the time is right. Every person who uses power to silence truth, to remove the innocent, to replace God with something lesser, they are all building toward their own moment in Jezreel. God's word does not return empty, ever.